Have you ever felt like you were the only strong one in your family? The one everyone just assumed would be fine, even when your world was falling apart? I'm Hannah, and this is the story of how one phone call from a hospital bed changed everything. If you've ever wrestled with unfair expectations, invisible wounds from loved ones, or just want to witness a soul set free, hit like and subscribe right now. Because this story isn't just mine, it's so many of ours. Get ready, because you won't want to look away. The sharp sting of the antiseptic still lingers in my memory, accompanied by the unforgiving glare of the fluorescent light above, and the haunting echo of my father's voice as he ended the call. What's all this commotion about? You're not dying. Please refrain from calling in a state of panic. That sentence, from the man who was supposed to be my protector, pierced my heart. Deeper than any physical injury I had at that moment, I lay on a gurney in the emergency room, blood seeping from my wounds, every muscle in my leg feeling torn, my ribs screaming, but none of it compared to the fracture in my chest, the fracture inflicted by the very man who was meant to safeguard me. He abandoned me in that moment, isolated, as my sister, Chloe, experienced a breakdown following her unsuccessful job interview. Upon his eventual arrival, hours later, the expression on his face conveyed everything that needed to be understood. He was completely unaware of the transformation I had undergone in his absence, and he certainly did not anticipate the actions I was poised to take next. The crash unfolded in a whirlwind of tires, screeching, glass shattering, and then an eerie silence enveloped the scene. Upon awakening, I found myself unable to move my leg. I could taste blood in my mouth as I felt myself being lifted onto a stretcher. The paramedics communicated with an urgency tempered by calmness in their voices. We have a pulse. Compound fracture with potential internal bleeding. Let us proceed. I drifted in and out of consciousness during the journey to the hospital. When I next opened my eyes, I found myself beneath a fluorescent ceiling, trembling and partially enveloped by a thin, abrasive blanket. A nurse approached me, her demeanor kind yet brisk, inquiring whether I could feel my toes. I found it quite challenging. At that moment, I extended my hand toward my phone. The screen bore a crack, mirroring my own fractures. I navigated to the singular number that had consistently signified assistance. Father, my designated emergency contact. The initial call was directed to voicemail. The second ring sounded, then abruptly ceased. After 2 attempts, he finally responded. His voice was terse, clearly expressing irritation. Hannah, what seems to be the matter? I am currently engaged in an important task. Chloe is having a significant moment. Understood. I stared at the ceiling, forcing down the metallic taste in my mouth. Father, I find myself in the emergency room. I was involved in a car accident. I believe my leg may be fractured. He interrupted me. Are you in distress? Could you please clarify? I inquired. Are you on the verge of death? Chloe has just experienced a setback in an interview she was eager about, and she is feeling overwhelmed. She requires assistance at this moment. I am striving to maintain her composure. Now is not the moment for theatrics. Father, I whispered, I am alone. It is believed that surgery may be necessary for my condition. He let out a sigh, not born of fear or concern, but rather from a place of annoyance. You possess great strength. You will be just fine. Please refrain from calling in a state of panic. Chloe requires my assistance at this moment. Suddenly, the line fell silent. I gazed at my phone for an extended period, attempting to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. Not the incident, not the suffering. However, my father, the sole remaining parent in my life, had prioritized my sister's emotional turmoil over my own physical suffering. I lay there, the sharp scent of antiseptic invading my senses, the rhythmic beeping of machines providing the sole comfort I could grasp. The nurse returned, her demeanor softer this time, and inquired if there was anyone expected to arrive. Nodded, despite my growing uncertainty. I continually glanced at the door, anticipating his arrival. Yet, no one arrived. In that moment of waiting, a transformation occurred within me. It was in that moment that I truly understood the depth of my solitude, not only within that room, but throughout this family. As I reclined on that sterile hospital bed, dulled by painkillers and disbelief, the truth began to unfurl within me like a slow-burning bruise. This was not a novel occurrence. It had consistently been this way, Chloe. The favored one, Chloe, the fragile one. Chloe, who required additional care, heightened patience, and focused attention. What about me? I was the resilient one, the individual who required no supervision. The essence of autonomy. That was the term they employed when I was disregarded. Hannah is doing well. However, our attention should shift to Chloe, as she tends to be more sensitive. I reflected on past birthdays, recalling how mine were marked by intimate dinners, whereas Chloe enjoyed vibrant backyard celebrations adorned with string lights and elaborate three-tiered cakes. I recall my high school graduation vividly, particularly the moment my father was absent from the ceremony due to Chloe experiencing a panic attack over receiving a B on her final exam. He inquired, "You understand, correct?" That day, she truly required my presence. I comprehended the situation. For years, I convinced myself that I did. During my college years, while I juggled 2 jobs to cover tuition, he generously provided Chloe with rent money and purchased her a new laptop to alleviate her anxiety over the old one. When I mentioned that mine was deteriorating, he recommended that I either save up or explore Craigslist. The double standard was ever present, so nuanced at times that I found myself questioning my own perceptions. Yet, as I lay in that hospital bed, gazing at the stark white ceiling, I was acutely aware of the truth. There was a moment when Chloe, inebriated, accidentally reversed her father's car into a neighbor's fence. He referred to it as a valuable learning experience. However, on one occasion, when I neglected to refill the gas before returning the car, he took the opportunity to lecture me for an hour on the importance of responsibility and respect. Chloe had consistently embodied the emotional spirit, a true creative at heart. She changed her major 3 times, relocated to different cities twice, faced setbacks in internships, and through it all, her father was there with embraces, financial support, and encouraging conversations. Myself, I secured a stable position, managed my own finances, and maintained a trouble-free lifestyle, in some way that diminished my value in his eyes. I had no need for him. Up to this point, it was only when my car veered off the road that I found myself in need of him, not in the capacity of a provider, but simply as a father, to make an appearance, to take a seat beside me, to provide care. He did not. He selected Chloe, once more. Repeatedly, she insisted and obtained. I persevered, yet remained overlooked. Even when I found myself on the table, even during the discussions among the doctors regarding potential surgery and internal bleeding. At that time, I reflected on the numerous occasions when I had comforted myself with the notion that his heightened concern for her stemmed from her challenges. However, I have come to a profound realization. He never truly laid eyes on me. He perceived only what I was capable of managing and presumed I would navigate it independently. That night, as I lay with a broken body and a heart in ruins, I allowed denial to slip away. The fog dissipated. In its stead, a colder and clearer essence began to emerge. This was not love. This was neglect masquerading as expectation. I once held the conviction that through relentless effort, silence, and selflessness, I would ultimately secure his affection, not merely a love for approval. However, throughout my upbringing, that affection was consistently contingent. My success was anticipated. Chloe received praise for her efforts, regardless of the outcome. Upon presenting my report card adorned with straighters, my father would cast a brief glance, nod in approval, and remark, "Good, that's how it should be." When Chloe successfully passed a class she had been struggling with, he celebrated by taking her out to dinner, sharing the moment on Facebook, and publicly acknowledging her remarkable resilience. I discovered at an early stage that competence was not acknowledged, but rather taken advantage of. He relied on me for assistance with household tasks, to oversee the bills during his travels, and to maintain stability in our lives. In the meantime, Chloe navigated her existence, buoyed by a safety net crafted from our father's infinite willingness to offer second chances. At one point, when she inadvertently accumulated nearly $2,000 in credit card debt, he stepped in to assist her. Subsequently, he inquired if I could manage the utilities for the next 2 months to help restore balance to the household, and I agreed to do so. I believed that love manifested in picking up the slack, being the reliable partner, and consistently offering understanding, all while suppressing resentment like a bitter pill. However, I found myself perplexed. Not quite. It was only when I found myself in a hospital gown, stitches marking my side and bruises spreading across my arms, that my father, with a stark and unfeeling demeanor, informed me that I was being dramatic. My sister's unsuccessful job interview took precedence over my own suffering. I wasn't in a life-threatening situation, so perhaps I shouldn't have made the call after that call. I found myself gazing at the wall, attempting to come to terms with the overwhelming sense of shame. The most painful aspect was not merely his rejection, but rather the unsettling familiarity it evoked. This was not an isolated act of betrayal. It marked the apex of years spent in obscurity, only acknowledged when my utility was required. For years, I have embodied the role of the resilient daughter, the independent one, the uncomplicated child. The position had transformed into my confinement. I instructed them on how to regard me, not through words, but through my resilience, by consistently refraining from seeking additional demands, by consistently yielding to Chloe, even in the midst of my bleeding. At this very moment, it became clear to me at that moment that if I did not alter the script, no one else would take the initiative to do so. Could that be the most radical action I might take? Stop trying. Cease exerting effort for someone who only appreciated my worth when I required nothing from him. Cease the silent suffering merely to maintain the ease of those around you. Cease referring to it as love when it was, in truth, control disguised as admiration. As I lay there, it dawned on me that this was more than merely a car crash. It marked a pivotal moment. Perhaps, in the end, that was precisely what I required. As night descended and I was relocated to a more tranquil room in the trauma wing, the hospital transformed into an unusual sanctuary, cold and impersonal, yet somehow more comforting than the empty warmth I had become accustomed to at home. The nurse gently dimmed the lights, carefully adjusted the blanket around my cast, and inquired softly, "Is your family coming?" I provided the sole response available to me. Negative. She refrained from pressing the matter. She simply nodded and remarked, "Please inform us if you require any assistance." Yet, there was a need within me, a desire I had never permitted myself to acknowledge until now. Safeguarding, not derived from suffering. I am capable of enduring pain. Yet, from those who continued to label it love as they witnessed my unraveling. At that moment, I grasped my phone once more. My hand had become more steady now. I passed by Dad without a glance. "Former Chloe, I reached out to Ms. Eleanor Green, my attorney. I collaborated with her several years back on a housing issue. There is nothing of significant concern. She exhibited competence, composure, and kindness. Moreover, she regarded me, without the slightest hint of judgment for my reaction. As she answered the call, I braced myself for the inevitable unraveling. Rather, I astonished myself. "Eleanor, my name is Hannah. I am currently in the hospital." "Halt?" she inquired immediately. "Is your safety assured?" Indeed, in a physical sense. However, I require assistance. Assistance with legal matters. I provided a comprehensive explanation. The incident, the phone call, the termination. Over the years, I had provided financial assistance to my father and sister, discreetly transferring thousands under the pretense of being the responsible one. Her voice remained steady. "Understood. I comprehend. What would you like to pursue?" I expressed my desire to sever ties with them. The words emerged as if they were a confession, yet they carried the weight of liberation. "I want to ensure that they are unable to access any information. I wish to rescind all agreements I have previously entered into. Authority granted to act on behalf of another. Will beneficiaries be designated? Access to financial resources. Everything." She refrained from inquiring about the reason. There was no necessity for her to do so. She inquired, "Do you possess documentation regarding the support you have provided to them?" I nodded instinctively, then continued speaking. "Indeed, several months ago, I began the process of saving records. Financial transactions via bank transfers, correspondence via electronic mail, some texts as well. I was unaware of the reasons behind my actions. Perhaps a subdued aspect of my being had anticipated this moment." "Good," she remarked. "This will be beneficial. I will arrive at the hospital in the morning. We will prepare all necessary documents. You are not required to navigate this journey by yourself." For the first time in a considerable while, I found myself believing her. As the call concluded, I reclined into the pillows. The machines surrounding me emitted a steady and assured series of beeps. I was no longer merely focused on survival. I was prioritizing my own needs. The girl who consistently finished in second place, the woman who had perpetually stifled her voice, she had reached her limit in showcasing her strength for those who sought to exploit it. For the first time, the silence no longer carried the weight of abandonment. It resembled the vastness of space, room to exhale, a fresh opportunity to start anew. Eleanor made her entrance the following morning, precisely as the sun started to filter through the slender blinds. She wore a tailored navy suit, her hair neatly pulled back, a briefcase in hand, embodying a quiet strength of clarity amidst the hospital's cacophony of beeping machines and the sterile scent of antiseptic. "Good morning, Hannah," she said, offering a small, resolute smile. "Let us commence our tasks." She positioned a chair next to the bed and powered on her laptop, while I unlocked my phone and presented a flash drive that I had discreetly stored in my overnight bag. It contained months of meticulous preparation, with folders meticulously labeled to include bank statements, screenshots, PayPal transfers, emails, and texts. I was unaware of the extent of what I had retained. However, with everything presented in a single location, it became quite overwhelming. Transfers continued to accumulate. 300 present. There are 600. A check for $1,000, annotated in the memo line as Chloe's therapy copay, lease, grocery items, maintenance, and restoration services, financial rescues. The majority of the funds had not even been solicited with courtesy. It had arrived as anticipated, expectations shrouded in remorse. "Chloe is facing challenges once more. Could you assist me, please?" I prefer that she does not move back in with me. Could you assist with her car payment for this month? Only until she regains her stability. However, Chloe had never quite established her footing. I had never ceased my payments. Eleanor's fingers danced swiftly over her keyboard as she meticulously compiled totals, organized messages, and aligned requests with transfers. As she angled the screen in my direction, the figure displayed at the bottom sent a jolt of unease through my stomach. 91,437.32. Approaching 6 figures. More than 5 years have passed. It might have served as a down payment for a house. My student loans have been completely eliminated. A business was established. A safety net has been established. Rather, it was the subtle path of self-neglect I had forged to maintain harmony. Eleanor raised her gaze. This transcends mere generosity. This exemplifies a pattern of financial dependence. The emotional undertones of these messages approach the realm of coercion. I swallowed. Do I appear foolish? She responded with clarity. No. It appears you are someone who has been led to think that love must be earned through acts of sacrifice. That sentence resonated deeply within me. That is precisely what it was. Each time I made a payment, each time I acquiesced, I was not merely sidestepping confrontation. I was pursuing connection. Perhaps this time, he would express his gratitude. Perhaps this time, Chloe would recognize my worth. Perhaps this time, I will be noticed. Ultimately, they discovered that I would never decline an opportunity. Up to this point, Eleanor expertly navigated me through the necessary steps. Revoking the general power of attorney I had previously granted to my father, just in case. Years ago, she also facilitated the removal of both him and Chloe as beneficiaries from my will, while ensuring that all access to my bank accounts was updated accordingly. I will take care of the notification, she stated. It may become chaotic, yet we will maintain order, I acknowledged with a nod. She also suggested establishing a trust specifically for you. You are not merely severing ties. You are asserting your autonomy both legally and emotionally. As I affixed my signature to the documents she had meticulously prepared, a profound ache washed over me, one that transcended the physical pain of my fractured body. The grief was acute and palpable. Grief for the part of myself that persevered. The daughter who pondered whether he might appear next time. The sister who believed that perhaps through her generosity, Chloe might transform. As the final signature dried, that grief gave way to the emergence of something new, determined. At this moment, I found myself no longer seeking approval. I was not pleading for affection. I was establishing a boundary, not out of malice. However, it stems from the necessity of survival. By late afternoon, the hospital room had descended into an unusual stillness. The floor drip emitted a soft hum. Beside me, the throbbing in my leg, concealed beneath layers of gauze and plaster, had subsided over. By late afternoon, the hospital room had descended into an unusual stillness. The floor drip emitted a soft hum beside me. The throbbing in my leg, concealed beneath layers of gauze and plaster, had subsided, overshadowed by the relentless pounding in my chest as I awaited the inevitable. They were approaching. The hospital ultimately contacted my father after I designated him as the next of kin during the intake process. I was not anticipating his immediate arrival. However, Eleanor, ever the diligent one, remained by my side as a precaution. She remarked, her demeanor unwavering, "I would assume they will arrive when they believe they can create a spectacle. They are unaccustomed to being excluded." She was indeed correct. At 4:47 in the afternoon, the door swung open. My father stepped in first, appearing as though he had hurried, or at the very least, wished to convey that impression. His tie hung loosely, and his expression was one that could easily be mistaken for concern by those unfamiliar with him. Chloe followed closely, her oversized sunglasses resting atop her head, her demeanor oscillating between irritation and a sense of bruised pride. Then their gaze settled upon Eleanor. In an instant, the warmth dissipated. "May I inquire as to the identity of this individual?" Father insisted, gesturing towards her with an unmistakable forcefulness. Eleanor rose gracefully. "Good evening. My name is Eleanor Green, and I serve as the attorney for Hannah." Chloe's lips curved into a subtle smile. "A legal professional. Oh, please." I propped myself up slightly, a sharp pain coursing through my side. "Please take a seat if you wish to engage in conversation. Alternatively, you may choose to exit. The decision is yours." Father's jaw tightened. "Does this pertain to our previous discussion?" "Hannah, it's hard to believe you're genuinely upset. You were not in a state of dying." Chloe found herself in a particularly difficult situation, about to attend a job interview. I inquired. My voice lacked resonance, chilly. "You abandoned me in the emergency room due to Chloe's rejection from LinkedIn." Chloe inhaled sharply. "I experienced a panic attack. Your disappointment was palpable. I lost my composure. I was in preparation for surgery. Isolated." My father elevated his tone. "You seem to be exaggerating once more. You consistently transform every situation into a crisis." That line once more struck with the force of a slap. "Eleanor," I remarked, my gaze fixed upon them. "Could you please play the message?" She nodded and retrieved her phone, tapping it. Twice, the room resonated with the jarring hum of a speaker. "What is the reason for all this commotion? You are not in a life-threatening situation. Please refrain from calling in a state of panic. Chloe requires immediate assistance at this moment." Next, Chloe's voice emerged, soft yet distinct. "Hannah, your self-centeredness is quite apparent. Are you not able to recognize that I am in a downward spiral?" The call abruptly ended. Quietude, complete, condemning silence. My father appeared, utterly astonished, Chloe's complexion drained of color. "Have you captured our conversation?" He emitted a low growl. "Indeed, after you disconnected the call, it became apparent that I would require evidence when you began weaving your narrative." My father's face turned a deep shade of red. "This is extraordinary. You seem to have lost your sense of reason." "No," I replied. "Maintain your composure. I have finally discovered it." Eleanor advanced, clutching the documents tightly. "As of today, Hannah has officially withdrawn all financial access and responsibilities concerning either of you. This encompasses power of attorney, joint accounts, and any forthcoming legal or medical authorizations. You are no longer entitled to any assets or resources associated with her name." Father swiftly took the paper from her grasp. "This is not feasible." "She can," Eleanor remarked with a calm demeanor. "Indeed, she has." Chloe surged ahead. "However, I require assistance. I am currently seeking employment opportunities. I am unable to return to my mother's place." "That is no longer my concern," I stated, my voice resolute and unwavering. "You have been granted numerous opportunities over the years. This time, I was the one in pain, yet you still managed to center the conversation around yourself, your family," my father exclaimed. I declined, stating my position clearly. "Your essence, that is not equivalent." He fixed his gaze upon me, his eyes brimming with intensity. "After all that I have done for you, covering the cost of your braces, funding your summer camp, and supporting you throughout your childhood, this is how you choose to repay me." Every message gradually eroded the protective barrier I had begun to construct. However, I chose not to respond. Eleanor had informed me. Silence embodies strength. Allow your attorney to represent your interests. Allow your boundaries to resonate more profoundly than any response. I have muted their numbers. I allowed the phone to buzz itself into obscurity. However, that was not the end of the story. 2 days post-discharge, navigating my home on crutches, I logged into Facebook and encountered it. An ambiguous message from my father. At times, those whom you hold dear can inflict the most profound pain, particularly when they lose sight of their origins. A multitude of sympathetic remarks ensued, and Clara left a comment laced with subtle hostility. We have instilled better values in our children than that. Loyalty holds paramount importance. I chose not to respond. However, what truly astonished me was not their smear campaign. It was the one who remained silent, and who among us did not. My cousin Liam, whom I hadn't encountered since a family barbecue 3 years prior, reached out to me with a private message. Hello. I would like to take a moment to share something with you. I have faith in you. I observed the manner in which they treated you. Chloe consistently embodied the tempest, while you were anticipated to serve as the shield against it. That was unjust. I wept more intensely at that message than I had at any moment during my time in the hospital. At last, someone perceived me in my entirety, without the need for any explanation on my part. Sarah from work unexpectedly delivered groceries without prior inquiry. My friend Olivia once texted me, "You don't owe anyone your survival." Gradually, I came to understand that I was not solitary. Those who truly cared required neither explanation nor justification. They refrained from transforming my suffering into theatrics or manipulating me with false memories. They simply made their presence known. Gradually, I started to prioritize my own presence as well. I have resumed my therapy sessions. I engaged in a deep conversation, not to justify my past, but to explore it thoroughly, to comprehend the reasons behind my prolonged presence in a system that thrived on my silence. A profound statement from my therapist has etched itself in my memory. You were not cherished for your true self. Your contributions were duly recognized and rewarded. What you're experiencing is not love. It's merely a transaction. It struck with the force of undeniable reality, abrupt, piercing, and freeing. I began to take back more than just my financial well-being. I took back my identity. I established a dedicated savings account solely for my personal use. I have revised my emergency contacts. I have removed Chloe and my father from all social media platforms. It was not anger that directed my path. It was tranquility. The type that follows a tempest powerful enough to displace all that. Was inherently fragile from the outset. Time continued to unfold. My leg underwent a gradual healing process. The cast transitioned to a brace, followed by a cane, and ultimately settled into a subtle ache that surfaced with the rain. However, the silent wound I bore in my chest took much longer to mend. The type that no X-ray could reveal. The type shaped by a father's quietude. The entitlement of a sister. A lifetime spent fulfilling the needs of others, yet remaining unseen in one's true essence. Nevertheless, I found myself on the path to healing. Every minor act of self-respect gradually restored my wholeness. I took solitary walks and felt a sense of fulfillment. I prepared dinner for myself and found no necessity to share it with anyone in order to feel valuable. I laughed, not out of obligation to be strong for others, but because I felt a sense of lightness within myself. Neither Chloe nor my father ever offered an apology. Not a single time. However, their attempts to contact me ceased following the formal delivery of the final legal notices by Eleanor. Their absence, once a source of terror, transformed into a remarkable gift. I populated that silence with individuals who arrived uninvited. Friends who delivered soup without expecting gratitude. a colleague who assisted me during my work transition, even my neighbor, Mrs. Davis, who would visit weekly, bringing with her a bouquet of flowers from her garden. In those unpretentious gestures, I discovered a truth that no family courtroom or dispute could impart. Family is not merely defined by a shared surname. It is the one who appears when the darkness descends. It is someone who accepts your suffering without the need for evidence. It is someone who never requires you to apologize for your dependence on them too. All those who are still waiting for a parent to acknowledge you, still striving to demonstrate your value through selflessness, take heed of this message. You don't need to suffer to receive love. You are sufficient just as you are. The moment you cease to plead is the moment your true healing journey commences.